For thousands of years, smallpox was one of the deadliest killers in human history. It killed kings. It killed children. It killed hundreds of millions. And nobody knew how to stop it. But hidden in Africa, long before modern medicine, long before vaccines, some communities had already discovered a way to fight back. A method so effective that it would eventually help change the future of global medicine. Yet most people have never heard the story. And the story of how African healers, mothers, elders and physicians helped defeat one of history's deadliest killers remains one of the most overlooked chapters in human history. Tonight, we uncover that forgotten story. Imagine living in a world where a single disease could arrive without warning. No antibiotics, no hospitals, no vaccines, no certainty. One week your village is thriving. The next, families are burying their children. Smallpox moved like a silent army, invisible, relentless, merciless. Historians estimate that before eradication, smallpox killed more people than almost any disease in human history. It crossed continents, followed trade routes, moved with armies, and reshaped empires. But while Europe, Asia, and the Middle East struggled to understand the plague-like disease, African communities were developing practical strategies to survive it, strategies built on observation, experience, and generations of accumulated knowledge. But there is a mystery. If these methods were so effective, why did the world forget who pioneered them? Why are many people taught that protection against smallpox began elsewhere? And how did African medical knowledge help spark one of humanity's greatest public health victories? The answers lie buried beneath centuries of misunderstanding. And what we are about to uncover may completely change how you view the history of medicine. 1. Boston holds its breath. Church bells toll. Doors slam shut. Fear moves faster than the wind. Smoke hangs low over crowded lanes. Carts rattle past. Whispers turn to panic as the pox spreads. Physicians argue. Remedies fail. The city's prayers echo under darkened steeples. Maps unroll on wooden tables. Lines on the map. Ports marked. Peril traced. No clear path to safety. Markets fill with coughing people. Alleyway coughing and empty doorways. Families vanish indoors. Hope feels like a rumor. Then, an idea surfaces, not from a university, not from a royal court, not from Europe's learned men. A memory carried across an ocean. Church bells fade, strings tighten. From an enslaved African man. Transition cue, map dissolves from Africa to America. His knowledge is about to challenge everything Boston thinks it knows. His name was Onesimus, taken from Africa, enslaved in Boston, and still carrying something no chain could hold. He carried knowledge, observed, tested, and handed down by elders who watched, who lived, and why. He spoke of a practice at home, a small cut, a trace of the pox from the sick to guard the healthy, a deliberate exposure, a controlled infection, an inoculation. He showed the scar, quiet proof, a lesson etched in skin across an ocean of doubt. He remembered villages that endured, fevers softened, lives spared, wisdom shared hand to hand. Many refused to believe him, but the seed was planted, and history leaned in. As the outbreak intensified, desperation rippled through Boston. One voice rose above the panic, Minister Cotton Mather, following Onesimus's lead. He investigated, interviewed, read, each answer pulling him closer to conviction. This wasn't superstition, it was practical medicine carved from experience. But the city recoiled. Introduce disease into the healthy? Madness, they cried. Papers blasted headlines, pamphlets screamed, meetings erupted with fury. Rumors swarmed the streets. Faith versus fear, science versus scandal, until the controversy exploded. Flash cut. Boston split in two, one half pleading to try inoculation, the other bracing in fear. A city mirrored against itself. Families at tables, arguments low and fierce. Neighbors stopped speaking across a shared fence. From pulpits to parlors, scripture, conscience collide. Faith, fear spar in measured words. Physicians disagree, some resolute, some outraged. White coats masking doubt, white coats masking certainty. Town meetings rage, pamphlets thud onto doorsteps, paper, posture, voice, then numbers surface, ledgers, lists, columns of outcomes quietly tilting the scale. The inoculated survive more often. Skepticism falters, faces soften, resolve replaces rumor. The impossible begins to look possible as ink spreads across parchment. But even as inoculation gained acceptance, something troubling happened. The technique spread, the results spread, the credit often did not. Over time, accounts praised the practice while quieting the path it traveled. The names of African practitioners dimmed at the edge of the page. Communities that refined and taught these methods slipped into the footnotes, or vanished altogether. Manuscripts copied methods, not memories. Citations leaned toward the familiar. Accolades drifted to the loudest rooms. And one of the most important chapters in medicine thinned to a whisper. Not because it lacked proof, not because it lacked courage, but because the pen so often favors power over origin. Still, beneath the dust, the ink remains. The line from those first teachers to every life saved is unbroken, if we choose to read it. And yet, the evidence never completely vanished. Researchers would later uncover accounts from multiple regions of Africa describing inoculation practices. Different communities, different cultures, different generations, but remarkably similar observations. Again and again, people recognized that controlled exposure could reduce the risk of severe disease. This was not an isolated accident. It was accumulated medical knowledge, built through centuries of experience. And that realization changes everything, because it forces us to ask a profound question. How many other scientific achievements have been forgotten simply because the people who developed them were overlooked? Long before microscopes revealed viruses, long before scientists understood immunity, ancient communities knew smallpox by its consequences: the fever, the pain, the eruptions that covered the body, the scars left behind, and the terrible truth that survival often depended on luck. Or so it seemed, because hidden among the survivors was a clue that observant healers could not ignore. Again and again, communities noticed something remarkable. People who survived smallpox rarely caught it a second time. The observation appeared simple, but its implications were revolutionary. Without laboratories, without modern science, without written textbooks, generations of healers had discovered one of the most important principles in medical history: immunity. Across different regions of Africa, communities began experimenting, carefully, cautiously, sometimes secretly. They observed that introducing material from mild cases of smallpox into healthy individuals could produce a controlled infection. A dangerous idea, yet one that often resulted in protection from far deadlier outbreaks. This practice would later become known as inoculation. But in many African communities, versions of the technique existed generations before modern vaccination, and the results were difficult to ignore. But this knowledge was not isolated. It traveled along rivers, across deserts, through kingdoms connected by trade, migration, and storytelling. And as the practice spread, something extraordinary began to happen. Communities that adopted these methods often faced outbreaks differently, not with panic, but with preparation. And that would set the stage for one of the most important medical journeys in human history. By the mid-1700s, something extraordinary was happening. An idea once dismissed as dangerous was beginning to save lives. Across cities, ports, kingdoms, colonies, the practice of inoculation spread, not because governments demanded it, not because powerful institutions approved it, but because ordinary people saw the results with their own eyes. Parents noticed, healers noticed, communities noticed. The evidence was becoming impossible to ignore. And yet, the greatest battle was only beginning. The problem wasn't medicine. The problem was fear. Many people simply could not accept the idea. How could exposing someone to disease possibly protect them from disease? To modern audiences, the answer seems obvious. But in the 18th century, it sounded terrifying. Some called it reckless, others called it unnatural, a few even called it evil. And as inoculation gained supporters, opposition became increasingly aggressive. Some physicians risked their careers, some religious leaders faced backlash. Some communities were mocked for trusting unfamiliar methods. But they continued, because they had seen something their critics had not. Survivors, children who lived, families that remained intact, villages that endured outbreaks with fewer deaths, and every life saved became another piece of evidence, another challenge to old assumptions, another crack in the wall of resistance. As the decades passed, the world became increasingly connected. Ships crossed oceans, ideas crossed borders, knowledge traveled faster than ever before, and everywhere smallpox appeared, people searched desperately for solutions. Some looked to old traditions, some looked to new science, others looked to both, and gradually a remarkable realization emerged. The future of medicine might not belong to a single culture. It might belong to humanity's shared knowledge. Behind every breakthrough, there is usually a forgotten chapter. And behind the growing acceptance of inoculation stood generations of observers. African healers, mothers, village elders, traditional practitioners. People who may never have known their ideas would one day influence global medicine. They were not working with microscopes. They were working with experience, with memory, with careful observation. And sometimes, observation is where science begins. Then, a new chapter began. In the late 18th century, an English physician named Edward Jenner noticed something curious. Milkmaids who caught cowpox rarely caught smallpox, a different disease, milder, but somehow related. Jenner was fascinated. In 1796, he took material from a cowpox sore on the hand of a milkmaid, Sarah Nelmes, introduced it into the arm of an 8-year-old boy, James Phipps. Weeks later, he exposed the boy to smallpox. The boy did not fall ill. Jenner repeated the trials. He documented the results. In 1798, he published an inquiry into the causes and effects of the variolae vaccini. Vaccination, named for vacca, Latin for cow, offered protection with far less risk than smallpox variolation. It was a turning point. Observation refined into experiment, notebook into new practice, built on foundations far older than they appeared. The world had a new tool, and soon it would race across continents. Jenner's method was different. Instead of using smallpox itself, he used cowpox. The procedure proved safer than traditional inoculation, and gradually, vaccination was born. But here's what many people miss. Scientific breakthroughs rarely emerge from a vacuum. Vaccination did not appear out of nowhere. It emerged in a world already familiar with the concept of deliberate protection against disease, a world shaped by decades of inoculation, a world influenced by knowledge that had travelled across continents, including knowledge preserved within African communities. For the first time in history, humanity possessed a realistic path toward defeating smallpox, not controlling it, not surviving it, defeating it. The dream seemed impossible. Smallpox had terrorized civilizations for thousands of years. Kings feared it, empires feared it, entire populations feared it. And yet now, a door had opened. The question was no longer whether humanity could fight back. The question was whether humanity could finish the fight. For thousands of years, smallpox seemed unstoppable. It survived the rise of kingdoms, the collapse of empires, the invention of writing, the discovery of continents, the birth of modern science. Generation after generation accepted a terrible reality. Smallpox would always be with humanity, always. But by the 20th century, a radical idea emerged. What if humanity didn't merely control smallpox? What if humanity eliminated it completely? It sounded impossible. Some called it unrealistic, others madness. No human disease had ever been eradicated. Yet history was preparing for one of its greatest surprises. After the Second World War, nations that disagreed on almost everything discovered one thing they shared. Smallpox threatened everyone: rich countries, poor countries, rural communities, urban centers. No border could stop a virus. An unprecedented effort began. Governments, scientists, doctors, nurses, community leaders, volunteers. Millions joined a single mission: hunt down smallpox wherever it survived. Helicopters skim jungles, trucks grind across deserts, canoes slip along wide rivers, city streets and mountain trails, all on the same path, passports stamped, coolers of vaccine passed hand to hand, training in schoolyards and clinics, hopeful faces in every language. Soviet labs fill vials by the millions. American logisticians map supply lines. Newly independent nations train local teams. Radios crackle the same message across continents. Doors open, sleeves roll up. Blue scars bloom, relief, resolve, a promise shared. On the world map, dots become lines. Lines become networks. Regions connect in a rush of motion. For the first time in history, humanity points in one direction. Not at each other, but at a common enemy. The war has begun. The challenge was enormous. Smallpox wouldn't yield to memos or meetings. It had to be met face to face. So the campaign left the capitals and followed the maps to their edges across rivers, over passes through heat and dust, where roads ended and footpaths began. Deep jungles, high valleys, open deserts, isolated settlements. Teams moved by foot, bicycle, canoe, motorcycle, by any means that would carry a cold box and a question. Door to door. Any fever? Any rash? Anyone new in the village? Names written in ledgers. Dots on maps jumped to the next valley, the next island, the next border. Coolers slung on shoulders. Bifurcated needles clicked in steady hands. A blue dot, a tiny scar, a widening circle of protection. Every outbreak mattered. Every infection mattered. One missed case could restart the nightmare. At dusk, field clinics lit by lanterns. At dawn, a new route, a new rumor, a new race against time. From the canopy to the dunes to the snowline, the search tightened. Fast lines on the map stitching continents together, until only a few last embers were left to find. Slowly, the numbers began to fall. Outbreak after outbreak disappeared. Entire regions reported no new cases. On glowing maps, hotspots shrank to pinpricks, then to memory. Ledgers matched to charts, dots to names, rumors to resolved investigations. Cautious celebrations flickered, then stilled. Not yet. For the first time in recorded history, humanity was winning. But victory remained fragile. Each file, each scar, each blue dot closed a ring tighter than the last. Teams moved faster, watched longer. A single fever meant a village on alert. A single rash, a cordon of care. The closer smallpox came to extinction, the more dangerous each remaining outbreak became. The virus was cornered. Cornered enemies are often the most dangerous. So the circles narrowed, night after night, push-ins to shrinking nodes, light replacing darkness, until the war resolved into a handful of final chases, a few last sparks refusing to die. And then, the maps began to quiet. Reports thinned. Pages turned and stayed blank. The world held its breath for the last embers. Then came a moment few recognized at the time. In 1977, in Somalia, a hospital cook became the last known person to contract naturally occurring smallpox. His name was Ali Mao Mayalin. He had no idea he was entering history. His infection marked the end of a chain stretching back thousands of years, linking one victim to another across generations. And now, that chain was breaking. Forever. 3 years later, the impossible became official. In 1980, the World Health Assembly declared smallpox eradicated. Humanity had done what once seemed unimaginable. A disease that killed hundreds of millions, gone. Not reduced, not controlled, gone. For the first time in history, humanity deliberately removed a major infectious disease from the planet. One of our greatest achievements. Slow fade into reflection. And this is where our story returns to Africa. Every victory has a beginning. Long before organizations and global campaigns, communities observed, communities experimented, communities adapted, communities shared knowledge and passed it forward, generation after generation. The fight against smallpox was not the achievement of one nation, or one scientist, or one culture. It was a human story, built from countless contributions, some famous, many forgotten. Among them were African healers and communities whose observations revealed a powerful idea: immunity could be created before disaster arrived. The story of smallpox teaches something profound. Knowledge can come from anywhere. Great cities, remote villages, universities, oral traditions, famous names people history nearly forgot. The future is often built from ideas that survive against impossible odds. Ideas carried by ordinary people across generations, oceans, and centuries. And sometimes, those ideas save the world. If you enjoyed this documentary, subscribe and join us for more forgotten stories that shaped our world. History is filled with discoveries and achievements hiding beneath the surface. Sometimes, the most extraordinary chapters were almost erased. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next documentary. In Part 4, humanity launches the greatest medical campaign ever attempted. We will witness the global war against smallpox, the extraordinary effort that reached the most remote villages on Earth, and the astonishing moment when one of history's deadliest diseases finally met its end.